This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, David and Reverend Jeff take on another cryptid from around the world. This time, we'll be looking at the hominid from China, the Yeren. No, not urine, Yeren. And you'll never guess what the translation of Yeren is. Wild man, just like everything else. Seriously, does nobody else notice this? It's like Monster Quest just has a translator that makes everything wild man. Speaking of which, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
That's right. The man who can make all the words mean just one thing, Bigfoot. I am the host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and thank y'all for joining the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Season 3, episode 30. With me, as always, the greatest announcer man in podcast history and the greatest pseudoscience doctor in the planet, Dr. David Batdorf. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I did go to a lot of school for my pseudoscience history. I watched a lot of Monster Quests.
That's right. You know, it's funny. People are asking me, is David really a doctor? I met some new friends playing combat arms online, and they actually watched a couple of episodes of ours. They're like, is that guy really a doctor? I'm like, well, as much as Bill Cosby was a doctor. I actually gave him, an honorary Watchers Lounge podcast degree in pseudoscience. Hence, he becomes Dr. David Batdorf. So if you were ever wondering about how he became the doctor, that is the story of how we're going to do it. And I don't care who's listening.
I am as much a doctor as Sir David Attenborough is a knight.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely
honorary titles are honorary titles. There
we absolutely love David Attenborough as much as we love you, buddy. But God bless Almighty, that is true, sir. And I appreciate your candor of doing it that way. Hey, guess what time it is? It's time to get a little newsy. It'll play.
And now for the Squatchers Lounge news, bringing you the most up-to-date topics from across the interwebs week after week after week. The Squatchers Lounge podcast. Let's get newsy.
Newsy. Dude, there's a lot of stuff in the news, so we're going to kind of wander through this stuff a little bit. But the first thing that was up, chimps can spot faces like humans do. Well, no shit. Really? You don't mind that every single chimpanzee on Earth's face is completely different than every other chimpanzee on the planet. But hey, they can't recognize faces? Of course they can. But let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah, the most interesting thing about this, and it's something that, why do we not know this? This is like our closest cousin, our closest relative. There is a portion of the brain. It's actually there's some connections in the fusiform gyrus. There's a great TED talk out there about cognition and facial recognition, where if this one connection is cut, you won't recognize your own mother. Faces don't mean the same thing. Dogs don't see faces. They understand that's you because of the smell and the sound, but they don't see your face. They don't understand your face. Some dogs like people with facial hair. Some dogs don't like people with facial hair. That's like a shape color recognition, but not a facial thing. So basically what this is saying is that apparatus in the chimpanzee's brain works exactly like ours does. And if you cut that connection, then they no longer will see faces or recognize their peers as they did before.
And that's totally understandable, but chimpanzees are 97% the same DNA as human beings. Why would they not have that connection? The only thing in my mind that keeps the chimpanzee in cages and where they are is the ability to speak. If they could speak for themselves, they would never be in cages. That's seriously where I am with the chimpanzee intelligence in this world. No, they don't use, they can't create complex tools. But if they had speech, they could, because they could combine knowledge and ideas. And that's what makes humans special. But it doesn't make us so special that we're the only ones that can have connections like this on the planet. I just like to know is how far back down the primate line does that go? Does it go all the way down?
Oh, so the interesting thing there, the primates' ability, like primates don't have particularly great sense of smell in general. Like we have all about the same sense of smell. We can tell, like, sweet from sour. We use our taste in our noses, but we really don't smell things on the wind like we should. I mean, we're really terrible at smelling predators off in the distance and stuff like that. So visual cues That's why our eyes moved in the front of our head, and we have this color vision. Visual cues are really important, and that part of our brain is probably, something that we'll find goes way spreads way out over the known primates right now. But yeah,
Well,
basically what the chimpanzees I think need for their liberation is the Charleston Heston equivalent to let my people go. That's what they need.
They need a voice, and humans are trying to be that voice now. But for people who want to talk about enslavement, these poor nearly human beings, let's call them that. They're not human beings, but let's call them nearly human beings. These poor nearly human beings have been slaves for eternity. It's time to let them go, and it's time to make sure that they can still thrive somewhere. I mean, it's the time has come over. You know that. You and I both know that the large primates on this planet are dying, and they may not be dead in our lifetime, but before our great grandchildren are gone, there will be no more big primates on this planet. They'll be gone.
Yeah, we're going down the path of another megafaunal extinction, and they're at the top of that list because they're ecosystems and habitats are so fragile, and they're so specific. So, but let's not go off on a dark tangent.
I could sit here and cry about it all night. I really could. We'll have to do a chimpanzee night one night. I'm serious.
We'll do a one-off special like on a non-podcast night or something.
Yeah, on what's really going on with the chimpanzee in the world. Anyhow, next on up in the news. Let me get off my soapbox a little bit here. Velociraptor's cousin flaunted fabulous feathers and little tiny arms. Hell yeah, dude. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. We don't really know what dinosaurs look like because we don't have dinosaurs to look at. We've got hard pieces of rock that, happen to turn into these things that we can put some skeletons together, sort of, and get an idea of what they might have been structured like. But by no means do we get this until we find outlandish fossils where the feathers are still intact.
And feathers, by the way, feathers are not all flight feathers. Like, there are some of and our flightless birds are modified flight feathers. So they're really different. It's like a hair that has spines on top of the hair. It's a really, really interesting thing, but made out of the keratin, like your fingernails and things like that. So, but I love seeing these images, and it makes me laugh. You go to like see a Jurassic World or something like that, where all these raptors are still, like, even the word raptor now, like thinking like, back on like a velociraptor. It's like, why isn't that like a raptor that we know now? We used that. It means bird-like,
Right, exactly.
So looking back at some of these things in some of the old books, and even now, some of the children's books that I'm reading, my son have feathered dinosaurs in the appropriate
that is
spots.
So cool. What's neat about a feathered dinosaur too is, unlike a hard skin like a lizard or something like that, they can hide all these colors and they can reveal them at a particular time. I mean, if you look at some of the dancing birds in the jungles, they just look like these plain little black birds until they stand up and dance around, and they've got giant teal fronts on them. So this could be some kind of a display mechanism, some kind of mating mechanism is why they developed the feathers in the first place. And then with the extinction coming, well, you better get the hell off the ground because things are going to eat you.
Yeah, well, and the whole like the interesting thing to me is that people like this scaly monster, reptile, like gigantic dinosaur. Like, no, I'm sorry. We've all seen, Hitchcock's Birds. We're all nervous around birds flapping around our head, but the Tyrannosaurus Rex with feathers that's some other shit right there. That's next level scary shit. Is a big freaking bird that weighs 10 tons.
Right. 60% of dog lovers don't like cats, and 60% of cat lovers don't like dogs. But 100% of dog lovers and 100% of cat lovers say that we bird people are freaking crazy.
It's true.
All right, well,
I'll pet your dog, I'll pet your cat, but Seamus did not get touched when I was
no,
down
he
there,
did not.
I would not have fingers.
That's right. Dude, researchers discovered a new family of the most endangered ape. I thought this was cool. Hanan Hanan gibbons are the rarest apes in the world and a contender for the rarest mammal, but this week saw their chance of survival climb, even if only by a fraction. That's right. They're happy to find just a breeding pair of these things. Look, he's got a little one. So it's actually, they're continuing to breed. It increases the known population by 12%. Wow. So there's like 40 of these things floating around.
And that's it's the sad truth about where we're at with some of these particular species like this, but just amazing to see good news. And then some of these, circumstances, we may be wrong about the amount that there really are. And that's why the sort of research is really, really important. And what can you do to, how far does their habitat reach? Is it really as isolated as they think it is? And is the population really as isolated as they think it is? Relocation doesn't have to be to like spread out. It could be to bring more viable breeding DNA into an area they could capture somewhere else and bring them on the other side of the mountain and drop them all together, if that's what it's going to take. So it's really, really cool to see that we find new examples of these really rare species. That's good.
Right. And this actually comes from the line of China where we're talking about the nightly Yeren population. So, this just goes to show that there are very scarcely known apes already existing in the wilds out there. The thought of another one or a leftover or a pan-existent of something else is where we're going tonight later on too. So that's just neat that goes right along with the program tonight. Yeehaw. Next up on Nova was the bipedalism. How did bipedalism arise or arose? I'm not sure what the title's trying to say there because it's not over with yet. So, however, this was a really cool article. It's basically why we stood up and walked out of Africa 7 times. I mean, that's really what it's coming down to. I mean, if you watch the First Peoples episodes on PBS, it's a great series. David, if you haven't seen those, I'm going to hook you up. You need to watch those because we could actually have another podcast on that alone. But, basically waves and waves of bipedal creatures are making their asses way up out of Africa. Why is that?
Well, so they're the interesting thing that they're talking about now is like we often talk about, okay, well, what are the adaptations that allowed us to walk upright? Well, there's the fusion of the big toe and rigidity and all that. No, that didn't happen so that we walked out of Africa. Those are the adaptations that happened because we walked out of Africa. So why did we walk out of Africa? And they talk about the same thing we talk about with Sasquatch. It's food resources. It's other environmental stresses. It's predation. It's all these stresses that make these things and the whole array of things act in a certain way to all gain these sort of similar or different traits, depending on what's selected. But
it goes to show that bipedalism was the definite advantage because it overtook quadrupedal movement. I mean, in the breeding aspects of it, bipedalism didn't just bust out just like anything else. It was a mutation probably among a spider web of other mutations. And that happened, that the animals with that particular mutation succeeded in breeding more often than the ones without it, or was more successful in killing the animals, without it. And hence, it still remains a trait in the animals and becomes advantageous to them when other things happen as well. So just like the chimpanzee can get up and waddle around upright doesn't make him bipedal.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that, and I think on last podcast I misspoke, like even though the chimpanzees are mostly arboreal, quadrupedalism lends itself to the arboreal lifestyle. You have to have both hands and feet on the branch, when you're walking along, going from one to the other. And yes, you stand up to reach up and brachiate and climb to the next thing as the chimpanzee do. But it's not advantageous to be bipedal in a tree. I mean, we've all fallen out of a tree. A chimpanzee probably once in their life maybe falls out of a tree because they were pushed. I mean, come on.
Right. And even when they do, it was funny. Maybe they jumped, who knows? So, go check this one out at pbs.org. It was really an interesting way of looking at how the bipedalism actually
it says stop looking at the apparatus because the apparatus was reactionary.
Exactly. Now, the people that live on this island kill anyone who tries to come ashore. Hell, I'm down with them. How do you keep modern humans from polluting your population? Kill them bastards before they come ashore. North Sentinel Island is located in the Bay of Bengal on the coast of India, and it's well away from the landlocked Earth, and it's officially administered by India. No one has been able to make contact with the native inhabitants. The island is one of the last remaining uncivilized areas on Earth, existing in a rare state of conceded sovereignty. They're like, F you, we live here. We don't care who you are. Don't come here. I wonder, seriously, I don't know if it's true or not. It comes from wackulous.com, but I actually tried to find a couple of sources that would debunk this, and I didn't find any. And it really doesn't surprise me that there would still be some tribes in the Asian islands that say, yeah, don't do this.
Well, you think of the uncontacted tribes and things like that. When you're on an island, you're at an advantage. They probably had some bad experiences with the either more modernized people from India or from the white folk on the East India Trading Company coming through and giving them a hard time. And then you said, you know what? If you're not on the island, you're out. Yeah, like you die. Unfortunately, like something like this over the course of time does cause a lot of genetic problems, inbreeding, etc., yada yada yada. But
you have a population of 2,500 or better, you can't keep your genetics clean.
And even if they had more than that, eventually it just becomes problematic because you're on an island. There's nobody going on, nobody coming off, yada yada yada. But that's something that happens over the course of hundreds of years. Who knows when they took this stance? I mean, it probably only has to have been in the last 400 or 500 years to have taken that stance. To be completely primitive in a lifestyle still. I don't know how primitive they are. I didn't read this one. Sorry.
That's okay. There's lots of people in Asia that live in villages in a very primitive lifestyle to this day. Mm-hmm. We're talking hundreds of millions, if not 500 million, if not 3 billion people in China living in villages. It's not funny. Yeah. People, you really need to do your research about China. It's a crazy, crazy place. Anyhow, next up, 14,000-year-old tooth shows the oldest form of dentistry, and boy, it ain't pretty. It's like, they took an obsidian little piece of knife and a rock and broke out the bad parts of your tooth. But what does it say? It says that they knew back then how valuable your teeth really were.
They understood that the biggest problem that our upright bipedal apes faced is dental death. The first thing that will kill you in the wild, or that killed our ancestors and the pre-humans, was dental death.
And it wouldn't so much be from losing all your teeth. It would be more from the infections and the disease that would be brought in from having rotting teeth in your mouth than it would be from actually having them yanked out. You would be far benefited by actually yanking a diseased tooth out of your head rather than trying to repair it or fix it. But that's where the death would come from. Staph infection is huge amongst rotten dental teeth. I can speak from specific experience from that. I would have been probably dead by now if I actually didn't go and see dentists because of how hereditarily bad my teeth were from the time I was a kid.
And there's no there's no dentures, there's no anything. So it really shows that 14 and you have to think about that in terms of, this is like pre-pyramid, like pre
this
like
is like before the Bible. I mean, long before that. Yeah, we're pre-Sumeria, pre-aliens coming down here and messing with the gene pool of ancient aliens. Okay,
we're barely farming at this point. Like this is really like legit early on,
just out of hunter gatherers and into agriculture.
Yeah, but we
first started cutting down the forest and killing off all the monkeys.
Yeah, well, that too. When we understood that our teeth were really important to keep us alive, and that it's just there's so many questions that one little hole in that tooth begs, and that gets me excited, and hopefully there's more finds in this particular area.
Yeah, well, when they find one set of bones, they go there and they dig a whole bunch more crap up, hoping they can find more. So let's hope they get lucky and get struck by lightning and mauled by a grizzly bear on the same day. Hey, Bruce Kelly posted this over in the Coalition page. Don Jeffrey Meldrum announces the production of a second field guide from Paradise Cay is underway. The working title for this one is Wild Men Around the World. The goal is to place the Sasquatch phenomenon in a broader context. The survival of several relic humanoids like the Yeti, the Almas, the Yeren, the Oren Pendek, and by the way, all topics you've heard on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. It will also serve as a teaser for his next book, which will further amplify and elaborate on that theme. Well, I guess it's just that year. We just picked the right year to do this, right, David? Is that how that goes?
It must be.
I'm flattered. I really am. We're just ahead of the game on this one. Everybody will be looking this stuff up next year, and we'll already have had these podcasts online, so they'll be able to look them up and listen for themselves.
And I didn't even catch this when I was the quote unquote wild men around the world, making fun of the fact that Monster Quest calls them all wild men because they all translate into wild men.
It's strange. I'm going to go out to Google Translate one of these days and actually run these through and see what they actually translate out to.
What does Yeren really mean?
I'd ask our buddy Peter Liu to tell me, but he's actually from Singapore. I don't think he speaks Chinese. I think that's a whole different place. No, I'm just kidding. I know it is. Anyhow, we're going to get this news wrapped up here. Robot demonstrates self-awareness. Okay, Skynet is aware. Start packing your bags, people. Get your bug out bags ready. Get your bug out vehicles ready, because in 5 years, we're going to have robots picking up trash cans instead of people doing it. I mean, we've already got the robotic trash trucks. Now all we just need are these damn dumbass robots to drive the damn robotic trash trucks, and we'll never have to touch garbage again once it leaves our house. But I read this one. I watched the video. This was fantastic. They asked the robots, they told the robots a statement, and then they ask a question. They told the robots that they were given a pill to not be able to speak. Which one of you received the pill? And two of the robots just sat there. One of the robots spoke and says, I don't know. And then it thought for a moment and says, no, I now know I did not receive the pill because I can speak. The other two robots still sat there. But that is the simplest form of self-awareness. It changed its mind. If it can change its mind, it's definitely thinking.
Once its logic becomes flawed, it now is conscious. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. I'm hoping for more examples of this. Take that robot.
That's right.
And keep asking questions. I mean, like that. That's,
well, yeah.
that's
at what point does the mind get full of thoughts? See, that's going to be the problem with thinking robots, is their memory is still going to be limited. They're going to be stuck within a case that can only hold so much storage. So when do they stop learning? They'll have a set of programs that teaches them, the basic things about the world, but that still has to be stored on memory. And then all these new thoughts and all these new actions are going to be stored as well. They're going to have to be maintained constantly, or self-wipe at the end of the day.
Or do like we do and dilute those memories that seem not so important, in a sleep cycle, if you will, down to, just a base idea rather than specific.
Well, that's self-purging.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Exactly
It's like while we sleep, we do like the ultimate zipping of files and just make it the most context appropriate to what we need going forward.
That's why it's important to write down things that happen to you right away, because the longer you get away from that experience, the less you'll actually remember about it.
No, it's true. Like we self-wipe all the time, and it dilutes down to something. But anyway, the interesting I would love for them to try to do, because I'm assuming that these robots have some sort of a visual mechanism. The self-awareness versus consciousness thing, to set them up with some different color swatches, and let them look at themselves in a mirror and do the mirror test on robots. Wouldn't that blow your mind if that freaking worked? If the mirror test worked on a robot, like, so you make a red robot, a blue robot, and a green robot, and you let them look at themselves and understand and move and oh, that's me, I'm the red robot. Okay, whatever. And then you put a black mark on the head of the red robot, and it goes to touch the black mark, knowing that it's on its head, looking at itself in the mirror. That's immediate recognition. That would be interesting to see if that sort of thing happens. We do that with animals all the time. Some pass, some don't. Does the robot pass the mirror test? That would be my next one.
Well, they're definitely moving in Skynet awareness, so it'll be taking over the Earth in 10 years. People, get your shit together. Finally, tonight in the news portion of this is the Missing 411 Kickstarter. Now, we are not campaigning for this. We do not suggest that you give this program a single penny. I'm sure it's fantastic, but it looks like it's going to get funded as well because there's a lot of followers of David Pilates, but there's a lot of stretches that go on in these books. Now, a lot of people have read them and said they're fantastic books, but they're trying to say there's some kind of a government cover-up in all these missing people in the forest. And they've even got Les Stroud talking about conspiracy theories and a bunch of other, 52 missing people clusters. Well, yeah, look at where those are. Those are in the middle of the mountains. People disappear in the parks because shit eats them. They fall, they break their leg, they die. Critters come and get them, and there's nothing left to be found. The government doesn't have to hide that. With a population of millions of people who go through the parks every year, I'm surprised we don't lose more. Anyhow, it's out there. If you're interested, go look at it. David?
Okay, so here's the deal. I recently read or watched a video, a very harrowing tale. There's a teenage girl. She's an amazing person who lives in the town that I live in, Bellingham, Washington. Recently was in with her grandparents, who both lost their lives in a plane crash, but she was in the back seat and she survived. She was banged up, but she survived. Crashed into the top of a mountain in the North Cascades, and made her way out. And she followed a stream all the way down. She swore she could hear a freeway or a road or something, or cars. And she made her way down the stream until she eventually made it to a road where she waited for 4 hours and nobody would pick her up. And as she walked down, she saw a hiking trailhead and waited for somebody to pull in, and then made her case that she was just in she spent 5 nights in the woods with nothing but shorts, a t-shirt, and a cardigan, wet from going down a stream. This person could have died any night, anytime. There's a recent squatcher up here who actually was never found. Probably could have lost his life in one of the areas that I'm looking actively, because who knows, accident or whatever. He was going up there. He was going to this location. Bus driver saw him go to this place where he normally goes to go up on this the trail that he normally goes on. Something bad happened, and nobody knows what that is. People go missing, and this is real stuff, and it's tragic. And to make 2 books about that, and then make some like ridiculous government conspiracy up, like somebody fell on a rock, and I was in contact with their daughter for about 3 weeks. She didn't give up hope until she finally stopped contacting me and asking for other people that might be interested in going looking for her father. This is real stuff, and I actually take personal grievance against this. People die in the woods. They die every year. People have there are hiking accidents. He leaves out the fact that these are known things. Some of them make the media. People go up mountaineering on Mount St. Helens, and then they don't come back. They have a plan. They have everything. There are people who are looking for them, doing social media campaigns looking for them, but that's left out of this book because it's a government conspiracy. And there's not a whole lot aside from flying helicopters over and sending in a ground team into the best guess that search and rescue can do. I mean, that's the honest to goodness truth. Be safe in the woods, travel in pairs, know that there's somebody that can get out and get help and get back to where you are. And it's not a conspiracy, people.
Yeah. If you're getting out there in places where there's a chance where you're not going to be getting back, if you're not carrying an emergency GPS beacon, you're just insane. Sorry, spend the money. They're relatively inexpensive these days, and it's so worth it. Grab it, use it. It'll probably save your life.
There's two pieces of kit. One that I own, which is a handheld GPS unit that I can actually do an emergency 911 to my location, which is very important. And the other piece that I don't own yet that I'd like to is one that just plots a path like once a day or twice a day or 5 times a day or whatever you set it to, that emails a loved one your coordinates, and you can send one of like 3 or 4 messages to them at whatever point. One can be a 911 help, but it basically emails a loved one that letting you know that you're still moving, you're still going, you're still like, this is where you are. And so if you send a 911, you can send that whole path to an emergency person to get that person out. And that's a $50. There's no annual fee. It's like a $50 unit. Like you can have this. That's worth it. Peace of mind. Anyway,
exactly. I think it is time to get a little bit of word from our sponsor. And now it's time for Rules to Squatch By with your old pal Wes.
Number 50. Thanks to the TV show Ancient Aliens, we now know that Bigfoot brought pumpkin pie to the first Thanksgiving. How about that, huh? Learn something new every day. Come check out my recent work and my art for sale at westlosner.com. Stay squatchy, my friends.
I love pumpkin pie.
I love pumpkin pie, too. We also got a new sponsor on the podcast tonight. Would be Treasured Metal Jewelry. Design, repair, and polishing with an emphasis on specialized, one-of-a-kind pieces that make a statement. TreasuredMetalJewelry.com. Thanks, Joseph. We actually got your packages today. They finally came in the mail. A dude sent me a handcrafted silver bullet. Woohoo! Holy silver! Away! Actually, a 1-ounce solid 999 fine silver bullet. Handcrafted by the man himself. Really, really nice stuff. Mr. David, he's got a couple of pieces over there. Let me click over there.
I've got the silver bullet. I got the half ounce. I assume this is for my half pint version. And then also there's a copper one that I'm wearing right now. Well, totally appreciate that, man.
It's totally cool to get swag in the mail, bro. I really, really appreciate that. I also got a half-ounce skull made by the dude. They're all stamped on the back that they are 999. So, I mean, it is investment type of jewelry. I mean, silver is never going to go down in value. It always goes up in value. I also saw that he does like silver coin jewelry. I got one of these. He sent me a round copper of 999 1-ounce fine copper. That's actually going to be worth silver in about 30 years. So we'll hang on to that for sure. But he does like a mercury dime piece with the clamp and the chain. It's really nice stuff. So check it out at treasuredmetalJewelry.com. Thanks a lot, Joseph. We appreciate it. Anytime if you guys want to send us your swag and get on the podcast yourself, contact me at sloungepodcast@gmail.com. Well, hey guys, it's time for me to say a little something. We've been quiet about it, and I'm not real big on bullies, and there's some bullying going on out there about Portalgate, and this is just kind of happening today. And I gotta say, everybody's heard about the Bigfoot portals and Soha. Whatever. Get it on video, get some scientific equipment to test it, show us there's something there, whatever. But Dr. Matthew Johnson, John Carlson, and Grady, his kid, and Adam Davies were up there supposedly when all these portals went on, and Adam Davies has been quiet about it. He hasn't said anything about it. He hasn't admitted that it's happened. He's not confirmed that it's happened. He's not confirmed that it's happened. So his being quiet, they're taking as a confirmation that it happened, and they're releasing stuff like this, where it's, thank you, John Carlson, for not throwing me under the bus, but here, just in a few paragraphs later, Adam's ongoing silence is confusing to me because he's a man of science, yet he appears to be unwilling to face the possibility of public ridicule for simply standing up to share the truth. Well, you're bullying the dude into trying to come forward and confirming your crazy ass story. Now, nothing against John Carlson, but John Carlson was a woo nut before he went to Soha. So his confirmation of whatever Dr. Johnson's portal madness isn't really all that surprising.
The portal madness is confirmation for John Carlson.
Right, which is fine, but there's no physics that say that a flashlight would, I don't know. Who gives a flying crap? But Dr. Johnson, you're being a bully, dude, and that really is not cool.
You're on Squatch Watch.
We don't like a bully, and we know that Adam Davis does not want to talk about this because there's nothing to talk about. It's an experience that he can explain, being a man of science, quote unquote. And so what do? Just put yourself up for public ridicule just to be grilled for your amusement, or to back Dr. Johnson? No, there's no reason for him to back Dr. Johnson because there's no way he can do that. He can't support your claim. He can't do anything aside from either tell the story or keep silent. If Adam Davis had this experience, and I'm sure he's working to attempt to recreate it, I'm sure he's working with you to attempt to recreate it in some sort of way that we can document and share. Being a man of science, like somebody
science is repeatable.
Yeah, like I'm sure they teach that in Doctor 101. Even my pseudoscience doctorate had that in the 101 course. But basically, like that's the whole thing. Like, don't bully this guy for not talking about something that's totally ridiculous. I mean, somebody else like threw up some red flags, like NDA this, that, NDA the other, like whatever. I can't confirm that at all. But there's no reason for, even if there wasn't an NDA where Adam couldn't speak ill of the situation, there's no reason for him to even speak positively of it because he can't share it. It's totally ludicrous whether it happened or not. It's totally ludicrous, and he can't share anything reasonably, so best not to share anything at all.
And that's exactly where he is at on that. So that's your update for Portal Watch this week. We'll keep an eye on it for you. If there's anything else we need to bring to you, whatever. You want to believe in portals? Feel free to join them over there in their group and talk about it. But it's the same reason that we're not still talking about what happened to Stelios up there in the Sierra Mountains all these weeks later. It was a personal experience. No one can prove anything. So we talk about it and move on. Well, unfortunately for them, they're not trying to just move on from it. They're trying to enforce that Bigfoot comes from portals with 3-foot-tall guardians with red eyes and get shut down by flashlights. If you're watching this show, I know why you're here, and it's wonderful. Thank you.
And if you're watching the show because you hate us, thanks for watching.
That's right. Thanks for watching all the same. We're just here. You can cuss at us. Hey, leave us a comment. Click the like button. Click the dislike button. Hey, that's what it's all about, is engagement with your audience. But now it's time for tonight's topic.
And now for tonight's topic.
Well, look at that. I think I just said that. The Yeren, the Yeti. What the heck am I talking about? The Yeti, the Yeren. Yeren, Pinyin, wild man, variously referred to as Yeren, Chinese wild man. The wild man of Shenangawaga, the monkey man, The legendary creature is said to be as an yet undiscovered hominid residing in the remote mountainous forested regions of western Hubei, China. That's right. Witnesses typically report the creatures to be covered with reddish-colored hair, with some specimens being said to be white, have also been cited. The height is estimated to range from 6 to 8 feet, although some colossal examples allegedly exist of 10 feet tall and have been reported. Overall, it is smaller than the American Bigfoot. Like Bigfoot, though, the Yeren is peaceful and will generally quietly walk away when encountering people in the Zhejiang province.
Much unlike the North American Sasquatch, which in the Patterson-Gimlin film quietly walks away.
Thank you, Wikipedia. We appreciate that. Hey, Wikipedia, if you ever wanted to see what a Yeren was, you can go up there. Now, I wonder, Yeren, wild man. What was the other thing? Yeti, look there. Hey there, what's that? I'm wondering if Yeren isn't just the word that all these little villages use to say, what the F, dude?
Yeah, so but it's like the Alma or Almas was the Mongolian word for a wild man, etc., etc. And so what we have is basically similar stories, much more ape-like. Even that depiction that you showed a divergent toe. Some of the tracks in the most recent Monster Quest I showed a potentially divergent toe, or just a different kind of foot, something that's smaller, something that's not.
Yeah, here I have a picture of Dr. Meldrum's examples. They found the right foot at 1 year, and they found the left foot like 5 years later, and they made a huge big deal about this. It's a weird toe. It's a weird print. It's not like a Bigfoot track at all. It's a big wide front with a narrower back. And the toes are not lined up like they want to talk about with a Bigfoot track where they should be almost straight across. They're spread out like ours are.
And so the which makes it a more believable foot. Honestly, this looks more like a primate foot, including us, than some of the Bigfoot tracks that are all kind of straight across the top, like but so this is a really interesting thing. And I was watching earlier this afternoon, watching the Monster Quest episode with Dr. Meldrum and the anthropologist from China who's really interested in this topic, and they were trying to decide whether or not the toes were actually curled over, curled under, were they pressed in, was that a toe or was that a malady? It's not in the other one, yada yada yada. But this is definitely a more kind of dynamic foot and doesn't look like a bear footprint.
Right, at all.
Mm-hmm.
But even a bear footprint doesn't have toes straight across the front, which is what Dr. Meldrum says is different about the Bigfoot tracks from a bear track. Although the Grays Harbor, the most famous Bigfoot track that everybody sells online and everything else, doesn't have toes straight across the top. It has toes that look like this. Yeah,
which is a dynamic foot that moves and does all sorts of stuff.
Right. So let's talk about where we're finding this thing. Now we're talking about ancient Gigantopithecus territory here. So
we really actually are, and this national forest, and you'll see it's like there's a national road. This whole area surrounding this is national forest.
Now, before we even go any further, let's stop right here and just take a look at this map of mountainous ranges that look an awful lot like every other place we find tales or stories or sightings of these types of bipedal creatures walking through the woods. Look at the ridge lines, look at the forest structures, look at the water structures. They're very similar to the Pacific Northwest and the Sierra Nevada mountain chain that run down through California. Anyhow,
and the thing that people think of China as either they think of this like because it's so big, they think of this expansive desert, or they think of like the rainforest, like the southern like Hong Kong area where it's tropical. But this is, for all intents and purposes, coniferous forest.
Yes.
I mean, this is Yeah, I mean,
Not to be mistaken with carnivorous forest.
yeah. So, but it's mountainous. It's got streams running throughout. So this is where in this Monster Quest, they were really looking for the Yeren, not where you expect to find the. I should have brought up a screen share of this too, but like where you would expect to find a gibbon or something to be misidentified. You're misidentifying a monkey primate, a simian up in this area. So if I were to zoom out, this is very central China. This is, and like I say, the more coniferous style forests, huge mountain ranges. These peaks surrounding here are 8,000 and 9,000 feet, like higher than what I have in my area that I'm looking in. This is a great area, and there ain't nothing around. This is a great looking area. You start to see more of these big cities and some of the dry delta areas, and then back up into the Gobi area. This nature preserve looks fantastic to me, but also, as we were making note in the last couple cryptids around the world, here we have the Yeti and India, our Vietnamese rock apes, and
the Monday Baroon and
the Monday Baroon and all of these things that are up in this area, coming right out, like all the nutrients that are coming out of the Himalayas.
And again, it's right along that water spit where all the water is dumping right out through Asia.
So here we have a secondary. You can actually see the secondary kind of like high desert runoff is right in this area. So there, and then there's this impossible barrier. The question is, how do you get from here? You can't get from here to over here, as we might on this show. One might postulate that when the seas went down, this south, the East China Sea and the Yellow Sea here going into Korea would have been a dry valley area that gets you directly up into your Siberia, over into Alaska, and down into where we're looking over here,
which is, we know there was a land bridge there at some point,
and we know there was a land bridge here. We know there was a land bridge there, and those are really viable things. But so here's the difference. What we're looking for first and foremost in North America looks to be a relic hominid within our ancestral line of bipedal locomotors. What we see in China is this more potentially quadrupedal, divergent toe. This is, no joke, the home of Gigantopithecus. And we're not going to just say Gigantopithecus blackie. This is the home of Gigantopithecus blackie, down around, more like this area. But Gigantopithecus, the genus, not the species, lived in this area. And if you're looking for this 4 and 5 foot tall primate that can walk, because Gigantopithecus was a ground dweller. It wasn't a chimpanzee. It was probably more like, it was a ground dweller. It's something that could potentially have walked on 2 legs on a regular basis, a somewhat regular basis, and been more comfortable than our chimpanzee cousins.
I've got up a quick image of the Gigantopithecus blackie recreation that they put forward, this giant bamboo eating gorilla pie.
Yeah. So but the more south and east are these Gigantopithecus blackie, in the more tropical regions. But Gigantopithecus was widespread into India, all over the place. I mean, it's a really important thing to know. If you're looking for Gigantopithecus blackie, probably not, because the other Gigantopithecus apes were not specific bamboo eaters. They have enough food to survive all these extinctions, extinctions of bamboo. Excuse me. Let's be specific here. There was one extinction of Gigantopithecus blackie, but there were several extinctions of bamboo And you can actually see that in the teeth and the maladies and the malnutrition of Gigantopithecus fossils, to show that, like, that species is going to be in this one area, and it's going to have to be attached to that bamboo because that's what they eat. These other specimen probably ate a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what you might be looking for in a 4 to 6 foot upright primate, depending on who promotes it. This could be the undiscovered cousin to an orangutan that we don't know about.
Just like the Billy ape was the undiscovered cousin to the orangutan, or to the chimpanzee.
As much, or probably more so, probably than way over here. That this thing traveled way over here. We already talked about the fact that the bipedalism thing like helped us travel all over the place and do things that the other apes couldn't. That this quadrupedal land-based ape that probably could walk upright could still be here. So that's a really cool thing to look at. Another possibility for this area, and that area could include these other areas that we're talking about. This is all, if you look at the genus, they might be different species. They might look different. This one might be red. This one might be dark. This one might be, purple. I don't know. But a really interesting question here, but I still question why a quadrupedal ape, which has a more likelihood than a chimpanzee of getting all the way over here. But how do you get that all the way over there unless you walk on 2 feet and unless you're following the coniferous forest lines more so than the bamboo and the fruiting plants?
Right. And it's definitely not going by way of the coastline. It's not taking boats. I posted up the actual title of this video is, China declares the Yeren a real creature. But this is how far China actually goes. They spend resources on putting up statues or idols, whatever you'd like to call them, dedicated directly to this animal. I mean, this is actually, I believe, the entrance into the park that we're talking about, where they're physically looking for this thing. And this actual depiction shows that they're using foliage as clothing. And some of the actual depictions or witness statements, they say that they are actually wearing like little skirts of clothes or little skirts of foliage around them. I mean, it could just be that they were carrying along something that just happened to be covering their hoo-ha. Who knows? But, China doesn't just spend resources on nothing, and they're actually spending resources on finding out whether this creature still exists there or not, and they're allowing permits of outside individuals to come there and hunt for this thing. That says a lot in the eye of the China politics, because they've got 100 million starving people, and they're spending resources on this.
I don't mean to be a huge buzzkill, but this is actually a depiction of sorry. It may be attached to whatever it is you're talking about, but this is actually a sculpture, and there's actually a gentleman version that is separate. This is actually the Homo erectus pekinensis depictions.
Oh, well, you suck. Well, I grabbed the wrong picture then, but there is one that enters the park that depicts the Yeren, and damn it, I just grabbed the wrong image for it. Yeah. But anyhow, the point about the Chinese government actually spending money on searching for the Yeren and allowing outsiders to come into their central provinces. The reason China doesn't let people come into their borders is because their people are dying. Their people are starving. They don't have any money. It's horrible living conditions in a lot of places, and China doesn't want the world to see this. So they just don't let outsiders in. To allow outsiders to come and film in this location to try and find an answer to this question, then definitely still talks about the resources being spent and the importance of it, at least to the Chinese government.
No, and in the Monster Quest, there was the Dr. Meldrum equivalent of a major university in China was very clear that they have sent resources out, and they've looked into this, and they looked into it for years based on a couple sightings, and that's how they came back with these tracks that were interesting. But that was a government funded excursion where we don't do that so much here, if you will.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, I do have another depiction that I wanted to show, and this kind of is kind of more of a throwback to our ancestors and how they would have come across some of these creatures, because we would have existed with some of these ancestral giant apes. You know, could you imagine being an early hominid coming along and finding one of these things?
And that is supposed to be, East Asian erectus meeting Gigantopithecus. And that's, yeah. I mean, I could only imagine what the Gigantopithecus is feeling right now, because we're mean little bastards.
Well, yeah. I mean, they probably had cognitive thought too, just like the chimpanzees do.
Yeah.
You know, they're probably very, very close to the human, to the a nearly human condition. Why are my brothers killing me? Why are you beating on me? That's just kind of creepy. I wonder if they ate him.
I just want to eat the bamboozle. Well, it's possible. We eat a lot of stuff, even into today. Like, cannibalism
humans that eat
so much a
chimpanzees.
thing,
Humans that eat chimpanzees are just like wrong.
Yeah,
okay,
humans that eat humans. I mean,
well, yeah, that's just without saying. But I mean, I know people look at chimpanzees as bush meat. That ain't bush meat. That's your cousin.
Yeah.
Stop eating your cousin. That's just you shouldn't do that. Well, that's actually, we're going to end it on that point tonight. Don't be eating your cousin. And wrap it up for this edition of the Squatcher Sounds podcast. David, you got any final thoughts on the Yeren tonight, buddy?
I love the area for so many reasons, and there's so many reasons why there should be study there, probably more so than the Pacific Northwest, because what if there is another red ape, ground dwelling version of the chimpanzee, separate yet the same, a pongid that we don't know about that's in there? I mean, we only discovered the giant panda, what was 180 years ago or whatever. It's like
humans, the orangutan is the only one that doesn't have a living cousin specimen that we know of on the planet.
Mm-hmm. So who knows? It might be there, and that in and of itself is worth looking into. There's so many interesting parts of that question there that it intrigues me as much, if not more than the Pacific Northwest, because can't find anything up here.
Yeah, I don't know how to find anything in China either, but that's definitely going to wrap it up for us this week. And we want to thank Treasured Metal Jewelry, treasuredmetaljewelry.com, once again for becoming a sponsor on the Squatcher Sounds podcast. For the Dr. David Batdorf, pseudoscientist, I am the Reverend Jeff Kelly. We want to thank you for listening, and we'll say thanks once again, and may the Squatch be with you. Next week, epic Bigfoot encounters. We'll have to figure out which one we're going to talk about.
Chronologically?
Well, we did the Freeman episode last, so we'll have to see what came next, I guess.
There's something.
Tell me, Dr. Babdorf, do you like giving enemas?
To myself?
Do you like getting them?
Well, given by myself.
Yeah. Might make you a hypocrite too. Good night, everybody.